Well, greetings. My name is Vicky Soma. This is Teagle 3D. In today's episode, we're going to talk about upcycling Keurig K-Cups into daisies. And what do you do with Keurig K-Cup daisies? Me personally, I've made pendant lampshades, made wreaths. I think there's a lot more applications to Keurig K-Cup daisies. I think you can use them in headbands. I think I have a girlfriend who uses them to decorate her mantle. So I think there's a lot of things that you can do with them besides what I do with them. So for my regular viewers, I do want to give you a heads up that you're not going to see a lot of slicing footage or 3D modeling footage. A lot of the footage is going to be with processing the K-Cups, which is realistic for this project because most of the work in a big Keurig K-Cup lamp is processing the K-Cups. And then if you stumbled on my channel to learn how to upcycle Keurig K-Cups, please don't be intimidated that this is a 3D printing channel. Everything that I do here, there is a option to accomplish without 3D printing, and I'll make sure to highlight that along the way. A quick overview of our process is we are going to compost or empty the grounds of the K-Cups. Then you're going to be cutting up the K-Cups to make the daisy shapes. And then you apply a center. And for me, that's where 3D printing comes in. Composting. We've been doing this for a number of years. It predates my 3D modeling career. And we use the coffee grounds in our garden, in our compost pile. So there's a lot of nutrients that the coffee grounds can incorporate back into the soils. There are some 3D printing options for the physical act of emptying out the K-Cup. First off, one of my early 3D models back in my Shapeways days was a little handheld tool where I could pierce the foil of the K-Cup and slice through, or you slice the lid off and then use it as a scoop to get the grounds off. I called it the K-Cup compost tool. Hey, it worked pretty well, but it's kind of, I printed in white, it would get discolored. It was frequently mistaken for trash. It was frequently thrown away. Ultimately, we started gravitating to other methods. So another 3D printing option for composting your K-Cups, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, but Derek Bibot has a model on Thingiverse. I think he calls it the Coffee Monster. And it's a 3D printed piece that will screw on top or lays on top of a mason jar. So it works very much like a juicer, where you take your K-Cup and like instead of an orange or a lemon, you're like, you take your K-Cup and you go like this and the grounds start to come out. My mom actually really liked this one, and this was her preferred method. And then, to be honest, you don't need 3D printing at all to get the grounds out of your Keurig K-Cups. We most commonly just use a fork where you pierce through the lid. You can rip the lid off with your hands. I think I usually do that. And then you just use the same fork to scoop the grounds out. With the filters, there's nothing really fancy there. Sometimes I could pry it out with a fork, but more often than not, I will go ahead and grab the filter and rip it out. Okay, with cutting the daisies, I do have a precedence. I follow the process that is in the Make It Easy Crafts blog. They talked about making a patriotic wreath, and they used Keurig K-Cups to make 2 daisies. I pretty much use their process. I'll link to the blog below. I do have some slight deviations. One, on their blog, the first thing they do is, after you empty out the K-Cups, they have you cut off the top rim. One thing I found that makes it a bit easier, we're going to be slicing down the length of the Keurig K-Cup anyways to make petals. So I go ahead and make that first petal slice. I cut all the way down the length of the K-Cup, and then I find it much easier to cut off the rim. My other deviation is, they got out a measuring tape and they measured every little petal. For me, when I was making this lamp, there's over 150 daisies in that. Measuring each one would have been a little time consuming. So what I started doing, what you can do if you don't have access to a 3D printer, is I just used my finger, and I used the width of my finger for most of the petals. And then when I got near the end, I eyeballed the last 3 petals to try to make them equidistant. It took me longer than I'd like to admit that all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, I 3D model and I 3D print. Why don't I make a template? And then I don't have to do all this measuring, and I don't have some malformed, like a really thick petal and a really thin petal. So I did make a template for myself, and that 3D model is up on Thingiverse. So if you are a 3D printing enthusiast, you can go ahead and print that out. And basically I just take that little template, I put the K-cup in, and I use a tiny little baby binder clip to hold it in place. And you know that I mentioned I made that first long cut for the petals. I line that up very flush with one of the ends of the template petals. And then I'm just slicing down each gap, and that will help me make all my petals the right size. You do want to make sure you cut all the way to the end, to the base circle. That just makes it easier when you unfold the petals. For shaping the petals, I take precedence from the Make It Easy Crafts blog, and one simple thing they did to make their petals look really nice is they just cut off the corner. It gives it a nice little kind of a nice shape for the petals. So once you have these daisies, to finish it, to make them look like daisies, you need to put in centers. In my case, I used 3D printed centers, and I knew that I was going to be using it for a lampshade. So I wanted to make sure that they were pretty thin, so the detailing would show through, a light would show through. And so I did use some proofs of concepts, printing and holding it up to a light. I use an opaque filament. It is Color Fab, the PLA PHA blend, signal yellow, I believe is what it is. And because it's so thin, the light does show through quite well. This model is up on Thingiverse as well, so if you want to use my 3D printed centers, you can. If you don't have a 3D printer and you covet these, just hippity hop over to my Etsy shop. I do have some. If you don't like my centers and you don't have access to 3D printing, there's other options as well. At the Virginia Tech Maker Festival this past October, I certainly did not have enough 3D printed centers to accommodate every child that attended. So what my son and I did is we ran to Michael's and we got some yellow paper, and we also got a circular hole punch, and we just punched a whole bunch of centers, and the kids would pick out what pattern that they wanted and use just a simple, I think they're called glue dots, just to put them on to make their own flowers at the event. You can use glitter glue, which is fun. The Make It Easy Crafts uses embossed felt, so you can certainly cut out circled felt or even fabric. Final assembly. So my first step when I was trying to affix the centers into the K-cups was I was going to use super glue. It's super, but it didn't quite work out. What I found worked a lot better was the goop. So I would just, put a little glob of goop in the center on and let it set overnight. And then with the actual lamp itself, this is a paper lampshade that I got from IKEA that's underneath it. I think it's called the Regolith lampshade, and it is only $4.99. So I got that lampshade, and basically I just used a glue gun to affix all the daisies to the lamp. You do have some creative options here. You can double up your K-cups, and that gives it a nice, it's a more fuller feel and looks more towards like a Gerber daisy. Also, you can paint them, and that's what the Make It Easy Crafts did with their patriotic wreath. My tip that I would have there is where you're going to glue the centers on, go ahead and put a little piece of masking tape or painter's tape so that part doesn't get painted. That's just to give it a better stick when you do glue that center to the flower. It's directly on the K-cup and not on the layer of paint. Well, I do hope this video was helpful and gives you some inspirations of some projects that you can do with your K-cups. If you do make a Keurig K-cup project, I would love to see it. Go ahead and comment here down below, or you can reach me on Twitter at TGAW. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.